Hi everyone, my name's Dan Boul. I'm president of 65 Amps. I'm also a consultant here at Line 6. And so I've had a lot of fun here with the Spider V. We've come up with a lot of great new patches that I think you'll find are very interesting, very valid, and very realistic. The original Spiders were meant to be very robust and feature-rich, but somewhat neutral in their setup. So the idea would be that any player could take this amp and do whatever they wanted to do with it. With the Spider V MKII, the idea was more, we're going to pre-voice the amp in such a way that it grabs you right off the bat. I think we've achieved that. It's come quite a long way from the original version. Things have progressed and changed a little bit. They've also really developed a nice client piece for the software, so all the end users can actually plug this directly into their computer, and you can manipulate a lot of elements on these patches that don't quite meet the eye when you're just going through the menus on the amp. So if you want to play with the compression algorithm or just the general EQ curve of the whole amp, not like bass, mid, treble, but actually adjust the frequencies that are emphasized or de-emphasized in the model, it's become much more robust, and then the user now has access to more detail than they did before. So you can really tailor it to your own ears. For a lot of people, what makes an amp attractive is the feel. 51% of it can be the feel. And in digital, that's kind of hard to do. So we've done a lot of things with all the amp models. Specifically, I've changed the EQ curves to make everything sound very forward. But we've also added some compression algorithms over the top of this to make it act and feel like a real amplifier, also to give you the illusion of what your brain would do to a really loud sound. It sounds a lot less like a recording of an amp, and it sounds a lot more like an amp in the room. So it's very fun. So let's start out with like classic American sound. This is a sound you've heard on every rock and roll, country, jazz record for 50 years. And it's just very straightforward. So this model is based off a little 112 combo that we all know. So one of the main characteristics of this particular amp is that it does misbehave. And professional players especially know where it misbehaves and how it misbehaves, and they use it as an effect. For example, this amp smears on the top end when you push it hard. And if you're sitting around listening in a studio, you might think of that as an unwanted behavior. But when you're in a band or you're playing with other people, it really helps you settle into the mix nicely. So the question is, where would I go next beyond American Clean? So we've got a few British ones here. The one that everybody knows is the Top Boost little 212 combo that everyone loves. So American amps, really full range, really, really bright. British amps, still bright, but they're at the lower end of the treble spectrum, so it gives you more of a bell tone sound versus that high chiming, right? This is the earlier version of that same amp. Early 60s Mersey beat rock and roll. Sounds a little more like a megaphone, you know. It's a great sound and really useful if you're playing in a rock and roll band. Well, the modelers here at Line 6 have very complicated proprietary software that's just in-house. So they go through an extensive modeling process where they measure every behavior in the amp, you know, voltage swings and current draw and all this sort of stuff. Then they also do acoustic testing with it where they have, you know, software that's capturing all the behaviors. That allows them to capture every detail that they possibly can. You can actually go in and then mess with it yourself and tune it to taste. Because if I say, hey, play me that famous British amp, to 5 different people, it means 5 different things. So this allows you to tailor it for how you like it. So this circuit from this existing amp is very similar to an American amp, the most famous American amps. It's literally just the components are different, and that's all it is. So, you know, the mid-range content is really different. You know, that's the sound that's still valid today, and this particular amp is still one of the most recorded amps in studios around the world. The sound of one of these gigantic British amps, stacks of amps behind you, very different in person than it is when you're in the control room listening to it through a microphone. because the microphone's not compressing it. Your brain will do that. So with the compression modeling they have here at Line 6, we tried to emulate that feeling. So, you know, wide open, this amp's not up very loud. We might be 90 decibels right there at the most. You can hear a little compression in there when I hit a big chord. It's not an immediate attack, it's sort of a swell, right? That's why it doesn't sound too punchy and sharp to our ears. Part of that's the compression that's in here, and part of it is that we're over that threshold of where your brain starts to compress things. Dare I say, almost a banjo feel. It's because there's a lot less compression now. There's a lot of stuff in between. I just kind of want to take you from the 60s to the 90s. This version, I think, is one of their better ones around for modern rock sounds. It's very friendly. It's very encouraging, you know. It's makes you want to sit down and play. I want anybody to plug into this amp and go, oh, I like this. Not have to dial knobs, not have to save things on menus. Just plug in and go, this is enjoyable. Okay, I'll take it.